How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Phil Talk Sports Podcast. Myself and Nick Rice coming at you this week, back-to-back weeks with Nick on the show. NFL season is 2-3 days away at this point, and I'm really looking forward to it. Actually, it's probably only, about that, because I always forget about that Thursday night game. But the NFL is back, and last week we reviewed the college season and everyting that is to come. About to do the same thing for the pro guys. So, Nick, how's it going? You ready for some football? I guess you are, because you got the jersey on.
Yep, absolutely. I'm very excited to see that Justin Herbert made it onto the Chargers 53-man roster. It was really dramatic there, but he did it. But all jokes aside, it's a special time for football to be back. And, no better place to do it than right here with Phil Talk Sports.
Absolutely. Nick's a harder guy to book now than he used to be, so we really had to make this work, but I'm glad we were able to. So we're rolling in here after a 3-game preseason. I actually want to start with that. How have you felt? Did that change? I don't know how much preseason you watch. I probably watch more than the average person, but I can honestly say I don't think I watched a full game of anything. I just watched a quarter. I basically watched till halftime of a lot of games because at that point you're dealing with the guys that, like, unless you're a diehard college football fan, you're going to know. And I am that, and I'll recognize some people, but like I can't bring myself to watch 2 full quarters of like not a single guy that might not even play. But what do you think of the 3-game preseason for this year?
At some point, I think what they're going to do, and I think we've come to agreement, is 18-game regular season, 2-game preseason. And I think that is perfect, especially now that there's teams that don't play any, certain starters at all.
Yeah.
And the Chargers are one of those guys with Justin Herbert. So it is on the way to what I think is the present day best decision, which is that. And in the meantime, 3 games with an extra week for clubs to prepare and to just rest, I think is fantastic. And it also gives college football a chance to shine for weekend. And then it gives the NFL players a chance to, those fans to get a little more excited about what's to come.
So the one positive about the 4-week preseason was you knew first game you play your starters like a series or 2. Second one you play them like a quarter. The third one's the dress rehearsal, and the fourth one you just play all the bubble guys. The one negative I've noticed about the 3-game is nobody quite knows what game is what. You'll have like the Eagles, for example, played their bubble guys the week that the Dolphins played their starters. Because nobody quite knows what game's the bubble game, what game's the dress rehearsal, what game, other than everyone kind of still knows the first game, you play your guys for like a quarter, series or 2, and then they're done. So, like, I think that'll work itself out, but it was a little awkward this year. That'd be my only knock on this system right now.
Yeah, my only other knock, too, would be the preseason cut days. You go from 85 to 80 after, I think, week 1, maybe week 2, and then 80 to 53. And to me, that is such a massive move of all these rosters. I think at some point they could add an extra layer to that. And that was the 4-game preseason, where every week after the game, you'd see about 8 guys cut.
Yeah.
And that's where okay, I made it to the next round. Now my role becomes a little bit different on the team as I'm trying to, fight my way to the 53. So all that stuff's getting worked out. As you said, there's benefits to 4, but I think we're headed to 2.
I think 2 will make a lot more sense because you'll know maybe game 1 is you kind of just throw out the middle ground is week 1, or you play your starters a quarter or a series or 2, and then game 2 is maybe a half, and then the bubble guys, you kind of have to truncate everything. Maybe that's how that works at that point.
Because I would assume they're still going to have a bye week between, but I don't know.
Maybe they'll do like a game, a bye week, and then a game, like kind of rotate the teams on schedules. You know what I mean? So like there's 4 weeks of games, but you only play 2 of those weeks. That might be beneficial.
Certainly that would create more scrimmages. And as long as the defending Super Bowl appearance don't match up in a scrimmage or in a joint practice, I'm sure everything will be just okay.
People, if there wasn't at least one joint practice fight, like I'd be a little disappointed. So I'm glad that we at least had a few of them. I don't know why people are shocked when these happen. Like you're only seeing your teammates for like 2-3 weeks, and then you finally get to hit other humans.
Yeah,
things are gonna get out of hand. Like I don't know why they're surprised when this happens.
Yeah, but Aaron Donald is sure one scary dude to go up against, man.
No doubt.
Shout out to the folks who could still play the week after that happened. I'd be traumatized for a whole year.
Definitely. So week 1 kicks off on Thursday, which is probably a day or two from now, depending on the day I put this out. Bills and Rams. To me, that's one of the better kickoff games we've had in a while, in my opinion.
Yeah, enough of the Cowboys playing on Thursdays or, open up the year or whatever. So, I mean, they do get I think the Sunday night game against the Bucks. So there's something, but yeah, that's a good one. That is a potential. I know it's maybe not the first choice for a Super Bowl preview, but it's definitely up there. So, I would say both of those teams will be playoff teams if everything goes according to plan. There's not something real screwy with those two teams. Great season opener. You've got some incredible matchups. The schedule makers were on one when it came to this one because week 1 includes the Baker Mayfield return to Cleveland and returns, Niners, Bears, a pretty good week 1 game. A lot of starting quarterbacks will be decided for week 1 and they play some good teams. So yeah, week 1 was the schedule makers knew what they were doing with this schedule.
Additional shout out to the schedule makers because they did the first ever preamble revenge game because they made this game before Baker Mayfield was even traded, but they knew it was going to happen. So hats off to them to pull that off.
Yeah. So overall, this is an incredible week. I, for a long time, have been, for about 29, 30 teams, you'll see guys already decide their quarterbacks, but there's a lot of teams that don't know who they're going to have as their starting quarterback. So week 1 is a little bit more interesting than usual, which is usually a pretty interesting week. The Steelers still don't know, or they're going to go, maybe first couple of weeks in a wait and see approach. Same thing with San Francisco. There are a number of teams where it's like we don't know what they're going to look like until they literally step on the field.
Yeah, we got more. Some teams are way more buttoned up than others, and some of that could be, again, we mentioned the preseason. This is new to them. People will eventually figure it out, but like some teams are trying to go about things differently than they have in the past, and these organizations are creatures of habit. So that's also going to help. Some teams, the organizations that are known to be organized, are going to be a little more buttoned up than others. I got multiple different topics about different teams and stuff. You got the Justin Herbert jersey. Let's start right there at the beginning. Is this the year the Chargers make the leap? They have gotten better in the offseason. Unfortunately, so has the entire division. So has it evened out? Does that stick them in the same place they've been? Where do you see, what confidence level are you at going into the year?
I think that they are one of those 10 to 12 teams that are Super Bowl contenders. And I know I'm wearing a Herbert jersey right now, but just from the simplest terms possible, the Chargers bring basically everyone back from that offense, which was top 5. And while the defense was bottom 10, they bolstered it with big, big names. So, J.C. Jackson is the biggest one. He is the perennial Pro Bowler. He's one of the best corners in the league. And you couple him with Khalil Mack, and then you sign guys that have been around with the program for a while. We are going to be in purgatory when it comes to the cap starting next year. We are already over the cap for next year, and we haven't signed our guys that are going to free agency. So we are going to be the Saints, what they are right now, which is, we can't sign anybody. But for this year, all our chips are in, and I think we're going to be a top 4 or 5 seed in the AFC. Then we'll see what happens.
So I've always said, I'm kind of a broken record. You guys hear me say this all the time in the group chat, you and Hank, but the Patriots have kind of ruined how we look at teams and or how they're supposed to build things. And people think dynasties are going to be, like a team gets good, they win a Super Bowl, they're going to win 3 of the next 5 and 5 of the next, 12 or whatever. But the sports have always used to been you get a window and you attack that window. And due to the cap restraints you guys have next year, this is very much a window for you guys that you need to attack. So I agree that this is kind of a balls to the wall, you got to go for it kind of thing. To compare it to like my team, I thought the Eagles have gotten better, and a lot of the division didn't really. The Cowboys got hit with some injuries late in the preseason. Like they've probably gotten a little bit better, but like with the Eagles signing AJ Brown, I think they're gonna.
I think the Cowboys are going to take a step back, by the way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's due to the injuries on the offensive line because all these years that they've, been winning the NFC East, like everybody knew how good that O-line is. And when they don't have that to fall back on, Zeke's getting older. It puts more on Dak. Amari Cooper's not there anymore. CeeDee Lamb's going to take a step up, I think, but it's Is it too much too soon? So yeah, they have a lot going on. So I think we're more benefit of circumstance, whereas like I said, you guys got better, but so did the whole division. So it's
Yep.
who got more out of that offseason, I guess is what it's going to come down to. Do you see yourself winning the division? Are you talking wild card? What do you think?
Wild card.
Yeah.
So I guess when I said top 4 or 5, I guess we have to be 5
Yeah.
because I think Kansas City wins the AFC West. And I know they lost Tyreek Hill, but Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, you got that combo. You can surround them with, no offense, Home Depot drivers. Throw them out there at every other position. They'll be just fine. So I say LA comes in runner up there. But yeah, it is the one division where this could be a year that they all 4 get in. I think only 3 get in, but it's a year where that definitely could happen.
I don't know if that was meant to be like a dig at Home Depot or something. Does Nick think
Sure
that Home
is.
Depot drivers aren't athletic? I guess I don't know. But so you mentioned the Tyreek Hill move. You know, he's not in Kansas City anymore. One of the biggest splashes in the offseason was Tyreek Hill going to the Miami Dolphins. I think the only thing that hits that level of flashiness is Russell Wilson going to the Broncos. So that's 2 AFC teams. And my question now to
Adams
you
with the
is,
Raiders too. That was
yeah,
another
that's
good.
definitely up there as well. But out of the two, out of the Broncos and the Dolphins, which team has a better chance to live up to the hype that's been given for them?
Good segue there. I would say probably Denver, and I don't think any of them are going to take massive jumps.
Mm-hmm.
But when you lose Brian Flores, I don't care how good you are from year, I think it's 2 to 3 with Tua,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Still very early in the Tua process, but this is going to be, in my opinion, for Miami, a mistake that they're going to see very quickly. Um, and it's no offense to the coaching staff they got down there, but it's just Brian Flores had that train rolling with young quarterback and young players all over. So it'll be very fascinating to see. But I think very quickly they're going to realize that, especially with that division as hard as it is, don't sleep on the Patriots. The Bills are Super Bowl contenders for sure. The Jets are awful. Miami is a team that I think of the two, you can go ahead and count they're not going to win. I think it was 10 games that they did last year. While Denver, it seems pretty clear. We're just wondering how big of a step they'll take. But it seems very clear that since they patched up the worst position they've had, for years, the one that they've really struggled with, uh, we don't know how big of a jump they'll make, but they'll make a jump.
It blows my mind, and I've probably said this before, how an organization like the Broncos can get virtually everything right except the
Yep.
quarterback. And granted, this is not prime Russell Wilson. I think if his prime is here, he's more, he might be a step below his prime. I still think some people think he's washed. I don't think that's the case necessarily.
No.
But we have 85% prime Russell Wilson, let's call him. We'll say he's lost one step. I'll give that 15%. So when you look at it that way, that should be the missing piece. But like we just said with the Chargers, the Broncos got better. So did everybody else in their division. And I don't think I share your sentiment on the Patriots. I think they're gonna take a slight step back from last year. So I do think Miami could take that second seed in their division. I think, like I said, Buffalo. You talk about attacking windows. I think they have their window right now, and they need to kick that open. If not the Eagles, for me, I'd be rooting for Buffalo to win this whole thing this year. They are capable of it, and I would like to see it happen. So both my head and my heart are with Buffalo on the AFC side. So to me, I mean, I know I asked the question, but it's a tough answer because I guess I'll have to go with Miami just because I think there's less
Really?
hurdles and just because there's less hurdles in that division. I think the sentiment is you think more of the Patriots than I do. I think I mean they beat them once I think last year, and maybe I'm wrong about the Patriots. Maybe they're going to be just as good. Maybe Mac Jones takes leaps and bounds, but I got to see it first. And Tua, much like the Jalen Hurts situation, the time is now. We went out and got you the weapons. We you got you the linemen, we got you the running backs, we got you the people. If it doesn't go right, it's going to be because of you. So it's funny, like these former teammates facing the same thing in year 3 of their, or I guess is Tua's or Jalen was before Tua, but they're basically in the same point of their career. That if it doesn't work out, it's probably going to be because of you. I don't see a situation where Tua balls out and does all these great things. Same with Jalen, balls out, does all these great things, but then they're still losing games. I think the show's going to go
Yeah.
how they go. So I guess if you're really looking, do I trust Russell Wilson at this point in his career more than Tua and his point in his career? Absolutely. So it is a tough question. I just think there's slightly less obstacles for the Dolphins to deal with.
But I also look at the obstacles from that front office. I think we can agree that's a bottom five front office.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
When you're rumored to having, to trying to convince your coach to tank games.
Yeah.
So, who knows how true that is, but it certainly seemed pretty true. So,
And the whole Tom
I don't
Brady
trust.
thing that they get, docked a first round pick and Brady doesn't even get indicted for the whole thing. That's the conversation for another day. But yeah, things are not Denver. If the question is who's a better front office, like I can't say Denver Broncos quick enough.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it'll be great to see those teams take the field right away. I think Miami plays New England, so we're gonna get the answer to that question in week one
no
about
doubt.
what team looks better.
Yeah. It's funny. A lot of these topics I have, they're almost all AFC related because to me the NFC is wide open. So before I ask the next one I have, who do you see as like? I think the Eagles are in a pretty good spot because of where their division is. They don't play the first place schedule, obviously. I think they're in a pretty good spot to be a 3 or 4 seed. But the NFC is pretty wide open. So I mean, the Rams obviously have a really good chance to get right back where they were. Their cast is a little bit different. But in a very wide open NFC, who do you think stands out?
Like almost nobody.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
yeah, Tom Brady is whatever it is off of his long hiatus, not quite as motivated or as fired up about this year as usual. Green Bay should be not quite as good, but I also think that now that nobody's looking out for them, I think they could still reach 11 wins or 12 wins. Probably not quite as good as they were before, but still very, very good. Still very talented. Still Aaron Rodgers. He is what he is. And then in that NFC South wide open, NFC North, Packers and Vikings are both really solid. None of them are quite, juggernauts.
Yeah.
NFC West is crazy, but nobody seems to be incredibly talented except for, the Rams are what they are. But I'm not a huge fan of all the talk of retirement from several guys before the year, Sean McVay, Aaron Donald, stuff like that. And then in the NFC East, I got Philly, but as you said, it is kind of wide open. I'd like to see, how some of those other clubs look. So yeah, nobody stands out is the answer to your question, in my opinion. Nobody does.
I mean, nobody stands out. I'm thinking of what could happen. Like if Trey Lance is anything, the Niners, this could be their chance just because nobody stands out. Like you said, the Packers probably going to win their division unless the Vikings make a lot of strides. I still think the Bucks win their division unless Jameis Winston thinks he's at Florida State again and the Saints just take off for some reason. Yeah. But yeah, nobody really stands out for them. And then the AFC is so top heavy. And of course, the winners of the AFC last year were the Cincinnati Bengals, making it to the Super Bowl, making a few plays away from holding that Lombardi trophy. How much Super Bowl hangover do you think a team that young is going to have?
With the Rams?
With the Bengals.
Or the Bengals. Okay.
Yeah.
Some they did bolster their offensive line. I think that they will get exposed a little bit more. The fact that they're not quite this incredible football team that people look at them as. They won a lot of close football games down the stretch. Yes, they were against good teams. Chiefs twice, regular and postseason. The Raiders in a close one. But then the Super Bowl, they were right there against the Rams. But I think it felt as much a joyride, magic carpet ride as it did, even though they're great. But I think they do suffer a bit of a hangover because of that. I think there's such a thing as, even though, even the football fan in me sees them as being really good.
Yeah.
There is almost always a case of when everyone loves a team, they never quite live up to that hype. And I think it's human nature to say, hey, everybody loves us. We know what we're doing. I think Cincy is going to look a little more average than people want to or believe they will look this year.
I mean, I could see their hangover making that maybe they don't win their division. They go to the wild card. They win wild card weekend, losing the divisional round. Obviously, it's not a Super Bowl appearance, but it's a 9, 10, 11 win year and a playoff win. Like I could see that. And that's based on where you were. That's a disappointment, but that's anything past last year. That's the best season the Bengals have had since the 90s. So
Yeah, a
they're going to fall a
lot of
little
things
short.
have broken for them over the
Yeah.
last year. A lot of things did.
Hmm.
Just to be in perspective.
And then the other side of that coin, that we mentioned the Rams have as good a chance as anybody to get back to the Super Bowl because the NFC is so wide open. Some of their offensive weapon has changed. Um, Odell Beckham out, Allen Robinson in, a few others. Cam Akers should be healthy for the whole year, maybe stabilize that run game a little bit more. You mentioned there was a lot of retirement talk. Those guys ended up coming back, at least for this year. Stafford looks as good as he's ever looked. McVay's back. So I guess the chance of them repeating is as good as any in the NFC, which is all you can ask for.
A lot of it is the division. The Seahawks will be one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
San Francisco, people have as a Super Bowl ready roster minus a quarterback, but I'm not as high as them being all of that. Even their superstars are getting older, like George Kittle and whatnot. And then you have the Cardinals, and I guess if Kyler Murray does his homework, maybe they'll be pretty good. But even then, I think you still have a team that I think is just as much the second half of last year as the first half of last year. Maybe they'll be more consistent. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury will figure out things to do in the second half. Mm-hmm. But that division very quickly went from best in football to just the league average, in my opinion. So I think the Rams, knowing they have 6 games against those teams, they'll be back in the mix this season.
Is there any rookies that you think are really going to stand out? Maybe some early rookie of the year predictions.
Oh man, that's a great question. My love affair for Jordan Davis out there in Philly. You know my love affair for him. But in terms of the high profile guys, Aiden Hutchinson of Detroit is pretty interesting. He's like the Mac Jones of players from last year, where maybe he doesn't have as high a ceiling, but you can expect him to play really good right away. And I think that's going to be the case in Detroit. So that'd be my choice.
I agree with you on the Jordan Davis thing. I think Jacoby Dean is actually, like, between the two of them being Georgia teammates, winning a national title, getting to play on the same NFL team, I think it's really going to help with that. Not because I think he's going to be fantastic, but Kenny Pickett is probably going to be the only quarterback from this draft to see significant time. And, as far as the awards go, the way people people like quarterbacks winning those type of awards. So I mean, I could see him in there. I'm trying to pull up the list here because I know there's somebody.
Well, I'll just I'll help you out as you pull up that list. He's not a rookie, but considering what happened last year, he might as well be a rookie. Mm-hmm. I got Trevor Lawrence being a guy that's going to make a massive year 2 jump. I think considering the dysfunction that was there last year and the fact that they did get better in the offseason, I think Jacksonville is a sneaky team that could get to 500. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be motivated after what happened last year. I would be shocked. It happens, just off the top of my head, Roberto Aguayo, who was the best at his position in college football and proved to be really bad in the NFL. It happens. But I would be shocked if Trevor Lawrence is not going to be a great quarterback. And I think this year is the year he makes a jump.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think Kayvon Thibodeau for the Giants is going to be a bright spot in an otherwise dreary year for them. I think he's going to be, Giants fans are going to look back at this 5-6 win year like, yeah, but we hit the first round pick, so that's something there. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State. If the Jets quarterback situation ends up being okay, if Wilson ends up playing, because he got injured in the first preseason game, it's nothing crazy. He might even be back by week 1. Like, that's the guy that, again, he could be a bright spot on a team that maybe doesn't get a lot of wins. There's another person. Kyle Hamilton, safety for the Ravens, fits right in there. That's a team that's got to play a lot of good defense to win games. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely put them as someone who might get a lot of early playing time trying to make that happen.
This guy became a starter on a pretty good offensive line with 2 Pro Bowlers last year. Zion Johnson of the Chargers.
There you go.
That was our first round pick, and he looked very good in the preseason. So you couple him with Rashawn Slater, Corey Linsley, and all the guys up front, I think he's going to be really good this year.
So what are some we're gonna do a little buy or sell here now, and then we might talk about a few more things before we get out of here. What are some teams that you know if you could buy stock in them that you're all in on for this year, and then who are some teams? We'll start with the buy. What are teams you really feel good about this year?
I brought up one of them, Jacksonville, but since that real estate has already been kind of sold,
Mhm.
one team that I think is going to be like a lock is Kansas City. I think they, with Reed, with Kelsey, with Mahomes, that
Mhm.
is a lock to being a playoff team, most likely a division winner, even though that division is, I'd say, the toughest in football. You can put all your chips in on Kansas City. They're going to be great this year, especially after Mahomes. I think he was rated as the third best quarterback in the NFL for this year.
Mhm.
Brady and Rodgers got over him. And I say Mahomes is every bit as good as anybody else. So,
It was just such a weird year for the Chiefs. Like
yep,
they sleptwalked through everything. They never looked like they ran a play. Everything just looked
yeah.
like backyard. Like go get open. If you're open, I'll throw it to you. You know, like
Hmm.
it was just a lot of
We're just
rolling
ready for
out.
the playoffs. That's all
Yeah,
we're doing. We're an NBA team on grass.
yeah. It's the Spurs on grass is what it felt like a lot of that year. And I think they're gonna have to work a little harder now. They won't just throw it up deep to Tyreek. You know, obviously because he's not there anymore. So I agree. I think they're gonna have to pay attention a little more, and that's actually gonna benefit them. So I definitely agree with you on that one. Got anybody
Yeah,
else?
the Chiefs. I don't know if you felt the same way when Andy Reid was in Philly, but it always seems like they need to get pushed all the time.
Yeah.
You know, they just, I guess they believe in their talent too much. But make no mistake, the year that they win the Super Bowl is the year after, they get heartbroken by New England's, and a lot of people kind of discounted them, and and then in 2020, or I mean this last year, they go ahead and, after losing to the Bucks, being called the team that's going to be a Super Bowl winner, and then all of a sudden they choke against Cincy, and now nobody's looking at them again. So I'd buy them this year.
I agree. Do you have anyone else before I jump in there?
Go ahead, yeah, you do your team.
So I'm just gonna. I had two. I mentioned the Bills already. I think the secret's out. We know how good Josh Allen is, and he doesn't really like. Last year was great. They made it. They lost on a coin flip. A lot of people. They were a likable team after that. But this I mentioned Windows. This is one of them. They really need to make that noise. They need to break that ceiling. Maybe try and make it to the Super Bowl. My other one on the NFC is the Bucks. You talk about Windows. This is the window. I mean, Brady retired once. This has got to be it. We don't know what's going on with him. He missed some of training camp, which, in my opinion, it wasn't a big deal that he missed preseason and training camp. It's that we don't know why. I think people really know the difference between those two. So this is it for the Bucks, and I see them, late in a divisional round game, trying to, we already mentioned their division is very winnable for them. So they're NFC Championship game or bust. I think I would buy stock in both of these teams because the urgency that I feel like they need to have this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing quite like an NFL team that's getting discounted
Yeah,
and left aside, that ends up doing really good. That seems to be how, unless you're the most talented team, a lot of these teams need to get pushed a little bit in order to be successful. What sucks is that I had one buy and one sell team. So so I guess I didn't play quite the game that you did. But if we're gonna go to sell,
yeah. Go ahead.
the team that I could say, I sell the Seahawks. I could
Mhm.
say I sell the Lions,
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
being playoff teams, but those were obvious.
Sure.
I'm going to choose a team that people love, that has a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and that people think are going to be really successful, and that is the Raiders.
Oh,
The
wow. Okay.
Raiders are the team that snuck through a lot of the year, won a bunch of one-score games, and with Rich Bisaccia gone, I think they take a step back, believe it or not. I think they don't make the playoffs when a lot of
Wow.
teams think they're going to go on a Super Bowl chase with Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
And yes, that sounds crazy. They bolstered a lot of key positions, and I think they're going to do worse. But I'd say that's the case. It's one of those teams that won a lot of one score, come from behind games to make the playoffs. And I think they got exposed in the playoffs as just a mediocre team,
Yeah.
and I think they're going to look like that this year.
I mean, I see them improving, but broken record here. They're now in the best division of football due to all the upgrades all the other teams made. So they might be the odd man out. They're like, if they were anywhere else, they'd be looking good. But they improved with everybody else, so that puts them in the same spot. So I could totally see where you're coming from here.
Mm.
I think my version of that is I have a few teams written down here, but I had the Cardinals. I just don't buy anything that's going on there anymore. I think when
Yeah,
they won the game against the Bills like 2 years ago on the Hail Mary, if that never happened, we never even start talking about the Cardinals. Like that was literally the
fair.
moment, and they never capitalized on it. And they had a great year last year, fell apart, and now they got all this animosity in the front office. I'm selling on them. I just don't. I think that their window never came because they didn't have enough time to figure it all out. I have the Browns in there too, just because the obvious quarterback situation, and I don't like
That seemed
talking about that
obvious to me.
situation a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was too obvious, but I just want to say that when and if,
Well, not to Cleveland fans. Don't
yeah,
they think their team is playoff bound for sure.
right. But the thing is, even when that guy comes back, he hasn't played football in 2 years. Like he's not a guaranteed like snap back to reality and here we go. We just have to be 500 till he gets there. I think that's a little wishful thinking. I've never really rooted against the Browns, and I'm not necessarily doing that here. But if they're going to be anything, it'll be 2 years from now when this circus is basically behind them. The only other
Yeah.
team I mentioned here is the Titans, unless Malik Willis comes in and they're just a completely different team because I think they've reached their ceiling with this nucleus they have. They were the number one seed last year and they lost, in their first game. And I think that crumbles everything they build towards. So those are the teams that I just think, if they were building to anything, it's already passed.
Yeah, one last team that we haven't talked about much at all. I think Baltimore is going to be a surprise team. Yet another AFC team.
Yeah.
This if we were having a college football realignment and conferences don't matter, I think we'd have 10 AFC teams in the playoffs this year because the Ravens are another team that for some weird reason didn't make the playoffs. And yes, they've got a quarterback disgruntled without a contract, but
Yeah.
this is a team that I think is going to come in this year pissed off and ready to win.
I agree. And you mentioned that college realignment, and it's eventually the bubble's going to burst. And next thing we know, the Ravens are in the ACC. We just don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be pretty
That's
crazy.
right.
Who is it? The Bills will end up in the Premier League. Like something crazy is going to happen. But when that eventually does, that's going to do it for us, guys. Hope you guys enjoy Week 1 of the NFL season, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching.